Hello, everyone. We're going to give folks a few moments to hop on, and then we will get started. Just a moment longer. Started. Good afternoon. My name is Sheila Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 27 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, Let's Talk About the Human Factor in Cybersecurity, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network. We are recording today's presentation, and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted, but if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box. We will adjust those at the end of the session. We have also enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And I will also share, we've had a glitch where we think it's Zoom, but we could not get the slides to load. But don't worry, Kiana's going to go through everything, and we will include the slide presentation with the follow-up email. Yes. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's session, Kiana Gainey. Kiana is a 20-plus year IT and cybersecurity industry veteran and has served as Chief Executive Officer for Secure Tech 360, located in Springfield, Virginia, since its inception in 2010. She is also the Cyber Industry Specialist for the Virginia SBDC. Welcome, Kiana.
Thank you, Sheila. Well, welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about the human factor in cybersecurity. This is one of my favorite topics. As she mentioned, I've had about 20 years of experience, and one of the jobs that I always say that I loved is that I had the pleasure of being a security auditor for a couple of Fortune 500 companies and also for some federal, state, and local governments. And what I found is that in my journey, while I was doing assessments to assess their security posture and their organizational policies, one thing that was mostly overlooked was the human factor, right? So most times they spent a lot of money on technical controls, even some physical aspects by putting in certain badges and adding different mechanisms within their organization. But one thing that I noticed is that sometimes with all the technology, the human factor behind cybersecurity sometimes got missed. And so over the last couple of years, there has been a recent amount of data breaches. And once they do some recovery with some of these incidents, they found that there were small things that could have prevented these. And so we're going to discuss that a little bit today. So one of the major reasons behind a lot of data breaches is the human factor. And when I say the human factor, it can be everything from we like to call it insider threat. The insider threat is usually broken down into several categories. It can be anything from someone that really didn't have any malicious intent, but maybe they wasn't aware of like a policy or procedure that your organization had, or a lack thereof. Maybe there wasn't a policy or procedure in place and they were able to give access or grant access to someone without thinking about the ramifications of what it could do to the organization or even the infrastructure. And then you also have some folks that we see it on the news. We've seen some breaches where people have actually leaked classified information, leaked information to news sources for monetary gain. Those are usually folks that have their own personal gain. And even if you come from a world where there's a government sector and they have a lot of additional training and specialized training to ensure that the handling of classified information or sensitive information is handled in a certain aspect, a lot of organizations are now taking into consideration those type of controls, or we like to call them, or mechanisms or protections they are putting in place to do their due diligence to make sure that they're not, that they won't be on the news, or they get a reputation of not being able to handle sensitive information. And so one of the major things that you can do, whether you're large or small, you may be saying, I'm a small business owner as well. And so when we start thinking about, okay, they tell me I need to buy a firewall. They tell me I need to do multi-factor authentication. Now they're telling me I got to come up with all these policies and procedures. And then who's going to do all of this work? Well, there's some things that you can do in your everyday organization to help you be able to be better prepared for incidents, and also to be able to put together a secure posture for your organization. So one thing I would recommend is that you review your current infrastructure, right? Look at if you're in a building or office space, look and see if you're at an office space that you're using with multiple tenants. Is there a security guard? Do they have an access control list, meaning do people have to sign in and sign out? If you are handling additional information, do you need to have someone at your front desk that has something similar, or do you have access to or put something in place where the front desk officer or person can call you and say, you have a visitor? Those are things that you can do to make sure that you are ensuring some type of physical security. And then also, a lot of times we put things in place and we don't take the time to educate our workforce. So for me, I have a small business. We meet every Thursday. We do weekly staff meetings, and we talk about everything that's going on with the business. But then we also have a piece where I like to call it the cyber talk, where we're looking over things that maybe are recent in the news, things that are happening. And then we look and see if this is something that if we have something in place, should we strengthen our physical security? How often are we looking at the access control logs? How often are we looking at our cameras that we have in place? Do we have something in place every day where we're doing like a daily checklist to make sure that our physical security and the people that are responsible for the physical security understands the roles and responsibilities that they have for making sure that they keep our organization safe? In addition to that, putting together what we like to call an incident response plan. So something happens, what should we do? Who should we contact? Who will be the first line of defense? These are things that I like to consider the human factors of cybersecurity, right? The who, what, when, and how. A lot of times we have that within our own lives, right? We make sure that we don't give access to anyone that we don't trust. And it's the same goes for your organization. You got to make sure that everyone who's working in your organization understands their specific role and responsibility, and then even go a step further and put together some access control lists. So when I say access control lists, this means who has access to certain information or even access to the organization. Like for myself, we run a 24/7 shifts because some of our customers, we do some incident response as well. And so if you are not scheduled to work, and let's say we saw you come up on the camera, the person there, even though they know you, right, and they're familiar, like, hey, this is my colleague, the first question before we would grant them access would be, what's the nature of your visit? Why are you here? So even treating employees or people that you still go through the process, because a lot of times something could have happened. Maybe this person was removed from the organization, and maybe that wasn't communicated to everyone. So making sure that you do your due diligence, even with the responsibilities that you have, it's just an extra step, right? And then also there are some things with training. So making sure that every quarter, or even when employees are first arriving to your organization, that you have some type of training in place for them. And then you also have like quarterly or annual training. And then if there's an incident actually happens, I like to do use cases, and then also like to do kind of a walkthrough on what happened so that we can prevent it from happening again, or if there was something that was lacking in a training or a policy, it gives us the opportunity to review the organization's policies and procedures. It also gives us the opportunity to open the conversation so that maybe one person's mistake can be a lesson learned and something that we can move forward, and maybe something we need to strengthen within our organization. So as you can see, a lot of the things that we're talking about with the human factors, it really is about making sure you're staying in front of incidents, making sure that your employees are trained, making sure you're trained, right? So the fact that you've taken time out today to come to this presentation shows me that you as an organization or a business owner wants more information. So there's a plethora of great resources and tools out there to help you, assist you. You may say, well, she's talking about all these different things, policies, procedures, incident response. I don't even know where to get started. If you go to our website, we have a lot of additional webinars, training, links to other organizations that are doing magnificent work in the cyberspace that will be able to give you templates so that you can be able to put together an incident response plan, a backup and recovery plan, a security plan. It will talk about everything from how to put together a policy, even answer some questions. Like we have a glossary that terms, and you may hear a term like, what is this? I heard social engineering. I've heard, what does that mean? How can I, educate my employees about something that I don't even know? So we have some terms and terminology there to be, and with definitions, to be able to assist you, to be able to put together these security trainings and programs to be able to strengthen your posture. In addition to that, we also have partners that, like we used here, that's called Posture. Posture actually has an automated free tool and resource that you can go on and put in some information based on your organization or your industry, and they'll put together those templates so that you can have a baseline. And a baseline is just a simple roadmap to be able to help you be able to place the information, because you really know what you need for your organization, right? And I always say, when I used to do my audits, is that the organization is only as good as great as its leader. So as a leader, you have to take charge, because you're ultimately responsible if something happens to your organization. So your employees and the people that work for you, and even partners that you bring, there may be some third-party partners or contractors, or, I know even with small business, we have like a plethora of people that are within our organization. So you can be the quarterback to champion putting together an appropriate security program and make sure that it highlights some of these human factors. And I touched a little bit about this, about social engineering. Social engineering is usually when someone finds a couple of things about your organization and they can kind of piece it together, and they'll usually try to either send something by email, or even sometimes they'll get even really crafty and send it from someone with a name or email that you're familiar with. But then there'll be something in their email that may alert you, because maybe there's misspelled words, or they're asking you for information, and you're like, this is Bob in Human Resources. Why would he need a copy of my financial forecast? That's odd. A lot of times it may seem so simple, and you would think no one would fall for that. You will be surprised. As my journey with this, as being a security auditor, we sometimes would do reverse social engineering and just see if we could penetrate the organization from just the people that work there. And you'll be surprised, people would give out email addresses, phone numbers, they would give out locations, and you're saying to yourself, your organization has a policy and procedure about what you should do in those cases, but you completely was comfortable because maybe I was a nice, friendly voice, or I maybe it was something I said like, hey, I ran into so-and-so. Maybe I gave you the nice, oozy feeling that I was someone that you can trust, right? So the cyber criminals have gotten very crafty about trying to also become, try to dissect the human factor in cybersecurity, meaning they'll try to do things that are familiar to you. So you have to just take those extra precautions by doing simple things, by verifying. verify and validate anyone that wants information from you or your organization, especially things that are sensitive in nature. And even for yourself, before you send out anything that may be sensitive in nature, run it through your upper management, because maybe there may be something in that particular document that pertains to maybe some trade secrets or some sensitive information, so that you don't be a part of either these data leaks, these data breaches. It's just as simple of taking, I always say, just stop method. Just stop, give yourself 10 seconds, analyze what someone is sending you, analyze something before you send it. Even if you have someone that you trust, run it by them, especially if it's someone in management, and say, hey, someone is requesting this type of information from me. The email seems, a little weird. I had an incident maybe a few days ago. An employee of mine said that there was this strange email that came across her email, and she immediately, thought about things that we talked about in our staff meeting. And so she ran the checklist, and she looked through the email, and she saw that the email address was very similar in nature, but there was a couple of letters off. She saw that even like the punctuation and some of the capitalization inside the email looked a little funny. And she said, we had a conversation earlier in the day, and I didn't mention anything about this particular task. So she thought that that was a little odd that they were requesting this type of information. And so she stopped, she verified, she contacted me by email. And then when I didn't respond, she picked the phone and she called me. She said, did you send me an email that said X, Y, and Z? And I said, no, I didn't send it. She said, okay, see, someone was trying to get me. And I said, see, this is why when we talk about these things in the staff meeting, it's not because I want to be like the boogeyman, the cybersecurity boogeyman that's trying to, scare you to be able to do different things. It's really to prepare you, so when those incidents happen, that you know what to do, right? So that's just a small example of, even though it was something that she immediately thought, this seems odd. And usually I always say, if you get that this seems odd, it may be, right? So do your due diligence, verify and validate, and just make sure that you, as the leader, are talking to your employees about everything from insider threats to how to prevent them from being a target, and then also putting together things like a security plan, a backup and recovery plan. Those technical controls are wonderful as well, but not forgetting the human factors that come along with cybersecurity. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I know I kind of ran through a lot of information, and a lot of the tips and tricks that we talked about, and even some of the links will be in the PowerPoint. And there will be some things that we talked about, some terms and definitions, as well as if you want to do a deeper dive. But I always say that I know that, we're always being like, giving you so much information about technical controls. And then we forget about just basic human things, right? And I think that this was why I wanted to do this presentation, because what I found is that a lot of times, even if we spend a lot of money on these technical things, we think, oh, we're secure, but we don't take the time to do the training. We don't get to take the time to speak to our employees. And we don't realize that sometimes that security is like a point in time. So the conversation is a constant conversation, because there's always something new happening. There's always a new threat. There's always a new incident that's happening. And we can learn from some of the big Fortune 500 companies who've had to spend millions of dollars with simple things that they could have put in place. And a lot of times, 50% of those threats or those mistakes were things that they didn't think about, which was the human factor. They may have spent a lot of money trying to secure the infrastructure, but just simple things that they could have put in place that would have saved them millions of dollars.
Thanks, Kiana. There aren't any questions at the moment. I am going to point out, if you have questions, to drop them in the Q&A, because we do have the chat turned off. But this is your opportunity to pick Kiana's brain.
Yes.
Also just dropped our poll. If you all could take a few moments to complete that, please. Yeah, and if you have a question, if you could just drop it in the Q&A, please.
And then it's just in conclusion, the human factor in cybersecurity plays a critical role in determining the overall resilience of an organization's security posture. While technology solutions and defenses are essentials, forgive me, human behavior, see, I'm human, human behavior and actions can significantly impact the effectiveness of these measures. Employees as well as individuals associated with third-party partners must be educated, trained, and made aware of these responsibilities. So even if it's not just your employees, also if you have third-party partners, it's always, I always say if there's some privacy policies that they have in place, make sure you read those so you understand what you are responsible for as the end user, and then also what responsibilities they have if in the event that there's a breach or an emergency, and if there's nothing that's clearly defined, you take that time to make sure you have that in writing as well. And just making sure that you just promote a culture of security awareness, that you do regular training sessions, you do some simulations, and make sure that everything that you have in place is clear, concise, and that there's an understanding that this is how you want to secure your organization.
We just had a question pop in. What do you recommend for small businesses that are just getting started and may not have additional staff or a lot of resources? How can we start well with little resources and establishing a sound foundation as it relates to cybersecurity?
So what I would say for me, I started in my basement, so I understand small beginnings, but congratulations, because even starting a business, I know that that is a major feat. And I know even as a small business owner that you are the business. So you become the security officer, you are the business officer. Sometimes you're the financial officer. You're like every officer in the company. So just as simple as when you put together your business plan for your wonderful idea, you thought about everything, right? You can just start with just putting some thoughts on paper on what type of culture you want for your organization, right? So just how when you start to grow and you're starting to do your interviews and you're bringing in employees, you know what type of employee you want that will be best suited for you and your customers. Think about that with your cybersecurity, right? So if you know that I'm going to be handling sensitive information, I always say treat information that is sensitive to you, that you want someone to protect for you, you do the same for others, right? So if it's as simple as, if I have some information that is sensitive in nature, I get a lockbox or safety, a little lockbox that costs $40 on Amazon, and I lock those up every night, so I'm not leaving them out on the desk. And then I'm also making sure that my employees understand not to keep out any sensitive information. If I'm taking credit card information, I'm going to make sure that I'm not sharing any sensitive information out to anyone else. Even if there are, some partnerships that I have and they said that this is how they're going to disclose the information, I make sure that I read that information so that I'm secure. I'm making sure that the information that someone gave me, I'm doing my part to make sure that I am keeping their information as secure as possible. So there's small things you can do. Write out a security plan, put in some things that you wanted to put in place. I'm going to do backups once a month. I'm going to purchase a backup. I'm going to use multi-factor authentication or not. Or I'm not going to, if I do send out something secure, I'm going to make sure that I put it in a secure link and send it out in a separate email. There's just small things that you can do with cybersecurity, even in the beginning. And maybe because I was in the cybersecurity business and I've seen just how the most trivial things can create, complete chaos, regardless of your size. And it's just small things that you can do in making sure that you don't become that small business owner who cause grave damage to your partners or to your reputation.
We don't have anything else at the moment. So if anyone else has something, please pop it into the Q&A box. And
we
if
can
not, wrap up.
We will definitely send out the PowerPoint that will have some additional information as well. Absolutely. And it also has my contact information. So I know sometimes we can get in groups and we can get shy and you're like, well, I don't really know how this plays for my organization. We're a little unique, or we have these, different things. You can always send a question and we'll answer it. And then if there's some additional templates or information or links or training that I can recommend, I will be more than happy to send that to you as well. So we're here to help you. The SBDC has a wonderful website. I think I mentioned that earlier on, that has a plethora of information, links, different training sessions that we've done in the past, and maybe there's specific topics that you want to do a deeper dive. There is all there for you. So we pride ourselves on making sure that we have the most up-to-date information for our clients. So thank you. You've been a wonderful audience. Like today, you know, even the technical didn't work for us, but the humans were able to pull it off and get it done. And so I always say, you know, with technology, I know with the advancement of all the chat GPT and the AI, you can't get rid of humans, because the human factor is that y'all need us. Even chat GPT needs us. They're only as smart as we make them. So.
Exactly. Exactly. We do it kind of sort of old school today. So Kiana, thank you for all this wonderful information. And I do want to thank everyone for attending today. As we've said, you will receive an email. It's going to have the link to this recording and those slides that you couldn't see today. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training. This webinar and other SBDC resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website. We hope to see you at our next session. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye.